You said you would start at the same hour. But the hour arrived, and you shifted it again. That movement is where your discipline breaks. This is where behavior is fixed, not negotiated. The clock does not hesitate, but you do. The body feels it first, small resistance in the chest, a slight delay in standing, a hand that waits instead of moving. Nothing dramatic. Just a few seconds of negotiation that repeat every day. The time was already decided, but you reopen it anyway. You think the problem is effort. It isn't. The problem is that the moment is still flexible. When time moves, your action moves with it. When time is fixed, your options disappear. That is the pressure you avoid. A fixed time removes discussion. It replaces later with now. The body resists at first, then adapts. Not because it wants to, but because the door is closed, the hour that slips. The same hour returns, unchanged, and you meet it differently again. The room is quiet, early light pressing against the edges of the wall. The time was already set, decided days ago, written down, repeated. Nothing about it is new. But the body does not move. It stays seated a moment longer than it should. Shoulders slightly forward. Hands resting, not acting. The delay is small enough to ignore, but it is never just once. The thought doesn't arrive loudly. It comes in fragments. Not now. 1 minute. Start at a cleaner time. The negotiation is subtle, but it always follows the same pattern. You don't reject the action, you adjust it. You slide the time forward by a few minutes, then justify the shift as insignificant. But the system registers it as failure. Not because you didn't act, but because the time moved. And once it moves, it keeps moving. The body learns this faster than the mind admits. It begins to expect flexibility. When the fixed point is no longer fixed, resistance doesn't need to fight as hard. It only needs to wait. A slight heaviness settles into the limbs, not from fatigue, but from permission. You gave it space. Now it expands into it. You stand up eventually, but the timing is already broken. The sequence is off. The first action feels heavier than it should, not because it is difficult, but because it started late. The delay compounds. Everything after shifts with it, slightly weaker, slightly less precise. And no one sees it. There is no audience for this moment. No interruption, no external pressure. Just a quiet room and a decision that keeps bending. From the outside, nothing is wrong. But inside the system, the fracture is already spreading. Because fixed time is not about convenience. It is about removing the moment where choice appears. You haven't removed it yet. So every day, you meet the same hour like it's optional. You let the body sit inside that gap, where action is still being decided. And in that gap, resistance does not need strength. It only needs time. You tell yourself you will correct it tomorrow. That you will lock it in properly. But tomorrow arrives the same way, silent, exact, unmoving. And you meet it the same way again. The problem is not that you fail once. The problem is that the hour is still negotiable, the pattern you pretend not to see. And it keeps happening because you keep allowing the same opening. The next day, the same hour arrives again, unchanged, precise, indifferent. The environment does not interfere. No one interrupts you. There is no external reason to delay. But the body already knows what will happen. It slows before the moment even begins. You feel it in the way you prepare. Movements are slightly softer, less committed. You don't position yourself to act, you position yourself to decide. That is the pattern. Not failure, but hesitation disguised as control. The negotiation starts earlier now. Maybe shift it 5 minutes forward. Maybe start after checking something small. Maybe wait until the body feels more ready. The excuses are not dramatic. They are clean, reasonable, almost efficient. That is why they survive. They don't sound like weakness. They sound like adjustment. But the system doesn't care about how it sounds. It tracks what repeats. And what repeats is this: the time arrives, and you reopen it. The body learns through repetition, not intention. Each time you move the hour, you reinforce a single instruction: nothing is fixed. The schedule becomes a suggestion, not a command. And once that line is crossed, discipline cannot stabilize. You begin to rely on how you feel in the moment. If the body is slightly heavy, the start shifts. If the mind is slightly distracted, the start softens. Everything becomes conditional. And conditions change constantly. That is why the pattern feels endless. You think you are making small adjustments. But the accumulation is visible in the body. The first step feels slower each day. The posture carries hesitation. Even when you begin, there is a trace of delay inside the movement itself, as if the action is still asking permission while it happens. No one around you calls it out. If anyone notices, they don't understand it. It looks like normal inconsistency. Maybe they even relate to it. Maybe they would tell you it's fine to adjust, to listen to your state, to be flexible. That pressure makes it worse. Because now the instability is not only internal, it is quietly reinforced from the outside. There is no resistance to your delay. No friction that forces correction. Just silent acceptance. And inside that acceptance, the pattern deepens. You begin to trust the delay. You begin to expect it. The moment the hour approaches, the mind prepares the negotiation before it even happens. The body follows. The system is no longer breaking randomly. It is breaking on schedule, the internal war you keep losing. And once the pattern sets, the conflict stops looking like a decision. It becomes a reflex. The hour approaches, and before you even reach it, the body tightens slightly. Not from effort, but from anticipation. The chest holds a thin layer of resistance. The hands move slower, as if buying time. You are not at the moment yet, but the negotiation has already started. This is where the war actually is. Not at the action, but just before it. The same loop runs again. You know the time is fixed. You know it should not move. And yet the thought appears anyway. Just adjust it slightly. Start cleaner. Do it properly in a few minutes. It sounds controlled. It sounds intentional. But it is the same pattern repeating under different wording. The structure hasn't changed, so the outcome doesn't change. You still pause. And that pause is where the system collapses. Because the moment you allow the pause, you reintroduce choice. And once choice is back, discipline is no longer in control. Now it has to compete, with comfort, with delay, with the smallest available exit. The body always chooses the easier direction when both are open. You feel it physically. The weight shifts backward instead of forward. The spine leans into stillness instead of movement. Even your breathing becomes slightly irregular, not from exertion, but from hesitation. The action hasn't started, but resistance is already active. And you stay inside it. You don't leave immediately. You sit in that space where both options exist. Acting and delaying. Starting and shifting. The longer you remain there, the stronger the pull toward delay becomes. This is not about willpower. This is about exposure. You keep exposing yourself to the same decision point, expecting a different result. You stand at the edge of action every day, but you don't remove the edge. You just try to cross it faster. That doesn't work. Because the mind is designed to negotiate. If you give it a surface, it will use it. It will generate reasons, adjustments, refinements, all of them structured to delay action without openly rejecting it. And you follow them. Not because they are strong, but because they are allowed. The war is not intense. It is quiet, repetitive, and predictable. And that is why it keeps winning. Because nothing in your system has closed the door on it, the time that stops moving. And because nothing has closed the door, the same war repeats, until something removes it entirely. Not by force. By structure. The hour arrives again. Same light, same room, same position of the body. But this time, the system is different. The time is no longer something you meet. It is something you obey. There is no check-in. No scan of how you feel. No adjustment window. The moment hits, and movement follows. The body resists anyway. That does not disappear. The chest still tightens. The limbs still feel slightly delayed. But something has changed underneath it. The resistance no longer has a surface to operate on. Because there is no decision point left. You do not sit with it anymore. You do not observe the hesitation. You do not analyze the timing. The sequence begins before the mind organizes its first argument. Stand. Move. Begin. The order is fixed. Not because it feels right, but because it has been locked in advance. The time does not ask for confirmation, and neither do you. This is the shift. The conflict that used to expand inside the pause has nowhere to go. It still appears, but it appears late, after movement has already started. The negotiation loses its position. It can no longer block action, only follow behind it. And behind action, it weakens. You feel it in the body. The same heaviness exists, but it does not stop you. The same delay impulse flickers, but it has nothing to attach to. The sequence carries you forward before hesitation can anchor itself. This is what fixed time does. It removes the battlefield. Not by eliminating resistance, but by eliminating the moment where resistance matters. The system becomes simple. At this hour action. No variation. No adjustment. No interpretation. The environment reinforces it. The same place. The same timing. The same opening movement. The repetition builds pressure, not emotional pressure, but structural weight. Each day reinforces the previous one, not through effort, but through consistency. And something begins to stabilize. Not motivation. Not intensity. Stability. The body starts to recognize the pattern. It stops preparing for negotiation. It begins preparing for movement. The resistance does not disappear, but it becomes irrelevant. It no longer determines whether the action starts. Because that decision has already been removed. And once it is removed, the system stops asking, when others start noticing. And once the system stops asking, it becomes visible in ways you did not plan. Not in results. Not yet. In behavior. The same hour arrives again, but now the movement is immediate. No pause at the edge. No shift in posture before standing. The body still carries resistance, slight heaviness in the legs, a dull drag in the shoulders, but it no longer delays. It moves through it without signaling anything. From the outside, it looks different. Not impressive. Not intense. Just consistent. And that consistency creates friction. People around you begin to notice the absence of variation. The time does not change anymore. Your availability adjusts around it. Conversations get cut shorter. Invitations start to feel mistimed. The same quiet response repeats, not now. It is not loud refusal. It is not explanation. It is timing. And timing does not negotiate. Some will ask why you don't shift it. Why it has to be that exact hour. The question sounds reasonable. It carries no pressure on the surface. But underneath it is the same assumption you used to follow, that time should be flexible, that behavior should adapt. You don't answer that assumption anymore. Because answering it would reopen the door. So you keep the response short. You keep the body aligned with the hour. You don't justify. You don't expand. The system holds. That is where discomfort starts. Not for you, for them. The repetition creates a boundary they can't adjust. It doesn't argue back. It doesn't explain itself. It simply continues. And that kind of consistency feels rigid to people who are used to variation. Some will push slightly. Just this once. Move it later. It's not that serious. The phrases are familiar. You used them yourself before. Now you hear them from the outside, and they sound different. Not because they changed, but because you did. The body registers it. A slight tightening in the chest, not from doubt, but from pressure. The old pattern tries to resurface for a moment. The memory of flexibility still exists. The reflex to adjust flickers briefly. But the system overrides it. At this hour action. No response needed beyond that. And as the repetition continues, something else becomes visible. The discomfort around you does not grow into conflict. It fades into distance. People stop asking as often. The pressure to shift reduces, not because they understand, but because the pattern does not break. Consistency removes argument over time. Not by convincing anyone. By making negotiation irrelevant, the system holds under pressure. And once negotiation becomes irrelevant to others, it tries to return through you. Not as a decision. As pressure. The hour approaches again, but this time the environment is not neutral. The day has shifted slightly. The body is more fatigued than usual. Sleep was shorter. The limbs carry a heavier drag. The shoulders feel dense, slower to respond. Nothing is extreme, but everything is slightly off. This is where the system is tested. Not when conditions are clean, but when they are just misaligned enough to invite adjustment. The thought appears again. You could shift it today. Just this once. Recover properly, then return stronger tomorrow. It sounds strategic, controlled, even disciplined. But it is the same pattern, wearing a different surface. The body leans into it. The weight in your legs becomes an argument. The slower breath becomes justification. The system is still there, but now it is being challenged from inside, not outside. This is where most structures break. Because they were built for ideal conditions, not for pressure. But fixed time does not evaluate the day. It does not measure fatigue. It does not adjust for mood, energy, or circumstance. It executes the same sequence, regardless of what surrounds it. At this hour action. The body resists harder now. The first movement feels heavier than it has in days. The spine straightens with friction. The step forward feels delayed by weight, not hesitation. But the sequence does not stop. Because the decision is not being made here. It was made before. That is what holds. Not strength in the moment, but removal of the moment. You move through the resistance without resolving it. You do not wait for alignment. You do not search for readiness. The body is slightly behind, but the system is already ahead. And that gap is where stability forms. Because now the action is no longer dependent on internal conditions. It no longer asks if the body agrees. It moves anyway. The discomfort stays with you during the sequence. The fatigue does not disappear. The breath remains slightly uneven. But something else becomes clear. None of it stops the action. Not anymore. The system absorbs it. This is where fixed time proves itself. Not when it feels smooth, but when it continues without permission, when time becomes identity. And after enough repetition under pressure, something shifts that no longer feels like effort. The hour approaches again, but this time, there is no build-up. No tightening before the moment. No early negotiation forming in the background. No preparation to decide. The body does not wait anymore. It aligns before the thought appears. The same conditions still exist. Some days the limbs feel light, other days they carry weight. The breath is not always stable. The environment still shifts. But none of it reaches the level of interruption. Because the system has moved deeper than resistance. It has become expectation. At this hour action. Not as a rule you enforce, but as something the body recognizes without instruction. You don't arrive at the time and choose to begin. You arrive already in motion. The transition disappears. There is no visible start. Only continuation. The old pattern, the pause, the negotiation, the slight delay, has nowhere to return. Not because it was defeated in a single moment, but because it was starved over time. Every day the door stayed closed, the pattern lost space to exist. Now, even when it tries to surface, it arrives too late. The sequence is already underway. You feel it in small details. The way your posture changes before the hour without thinking. The way your hands move toward the first action without checking readiness. The way the body steps forward even when it carries resistance. There is no internal announcement. No start now. It is already happening. From the outside, the difference is subtle. The same action, the same timing, the same environment. Nothing appears dramatic. But the absence of hesitation is visible, even if it is not understood. And that absence changes how everything else aligns. Decisions around the rest of your day begin to organize themselves around this fixed point. Not consciously, but structurally. The hour anchors the system. Other movements adjust around it automatically, not through planning, but through repetition. Time stops being something you manage. It becomes something that defines you. Because now, the action is not something you try to do consistently. It is something that happens because you are the kind of person who does it at that time. No discussion. No variation. The hour does not move. And neither do you, the hour that no longer asks. There is no final adjustment. No refinement. No improved version of the same mistake. The hour arrives, and nothing inside you moves against it anymore. Not because the body is always ready. Not because resistance disappeared. The weight still shows up. The breath is not always steady. The conditions are not always clean. But none of that reaches the level of decision. Because there is no decision left to make. The system removed it. At this hour action. That line no longer feels like instruction. It no longer feels like discipline. It feels like alignment. The body follows it the same way it follows gravity, without discussion, without delay. The negotiation that once filled that space is gone. Not solved. Not managed. Removed. And with it, the version of you that needed to decide every day disappears as well. There is no daily test anymore. No repeated proving. The action is no longer something you achieve. It is something you return to. Every day. Same time. Same movement. Unchanged. This is where discipline stops feeling like effort. Because it is no longer something you are trying to hold. It is something that holds you. And once that happens, time is no longer something you control. It is something you obey. This is no longer a practice. This is your structure. This is what you do.